Good afternoon. Welcome to another episode of The Gavel, featuring attorney Anna Toledo. Ms. Toledo is the senior attorney and general counsel for Targeted Justice. She has a background in constitutional and environmental law and is an experienced litigator, including 2 cases at the U.S. Supreme Court. And here's Ms. Toledo.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to this episode number 35 of The Gavel, a podcast dedicated to bringing you the latest news on our plight and our fight for destroying the government weaponization that has taken so much from us. I am your host, Anna Toledo, an attorney with over 30 years litigating experience in civil rights, in First Amendment, in environmental law. And I am here now fighting for a huge community of victims of government weaponization. My goal is to expose this criminal and illegal program and obtain the compensation and the retribution that each and every one of you has. It's long due to each and every one of you. To begin this week, as you know, for those of you that were last week here, the criminals had a feast with their hacking and in their interference. So I am going to invoke a Bible verse I found in Revelations chapter 21, and it says 21:4, and it says like this: "And God shall wipe away all tears from their eyes, and there shall be no more death, neither sorrow nor crying, neither shall there be any more pain, for the former things are passed away. And he that sat upon the throne said, Behold, I make all things new. And he said unto me, Write, for these words are true and faithful. And he said unto me, It is done. I am Alpha and Omega, the beginning and the end. I will give unto him that is athirst of the fountain of the water of life freely." And I'm a little emotional. Excuse my my tears because, as many of you know, Scott Adams died 2 days ago, and I consider him my friend, even though he didn't know my name, because for the past 10 years he has been an immense support. Even when I didn't know that I was targeted, he was an incredible support for the things that I encountered, and for making me become a better person. I can honestly say that I believe that a lot of the characteristics in me today that make me be here fighting for you and for me and for tons of people that I don't know, a lot of it came, from my parents, from my education, from my experience, but a lot of it came from Scott. And I invite those of you that have never been familiar with his work to do so, to listen to some of his good episodes, because he gave his wisdom selflessly. Now, thank you for being here. We have a lot to cover today because very important things for our community are happening, and you need to be very accurate with your verb and with what you write and what you disseminate. Okay. We have witnessed how the torture on everybody has increased. It doesn't go unacknowledged. We know that it has increased for everybody, the terrorizing, the torture, but God is here covering us, and he will take us through the finish line in this long run that we're doing for the benefit of humanity. So the good thing, excuse me, every time I start to speak, it seems that they microwave my lungs so that I start coughing. So you have to be a little patient with me because I don't do it intentionally. So exposure is happening, and it is a key to our triumph. I don't know, many of you might be aware that this very well-known journalist, Liz Crokin, she today yesterday and today, she has been publicizing, and I'm not making it part of the show because there's more important things that I need to talk about, but she is going all out saying, I am sick of being targeted. I am sick of being, the victim of this. And she's putting it out there, and she has 500,000 followers. And that is exactly what we need happening, because she is a very credible voice as a news person, as an independent journalist from the alternative media. And the fact that she's just putting it, she doesn't care. Nobody's going to call her crazy because she's putting out the receipts. Okay. So I urge you to follow her if you haven't, and repost her stuff, because this is a very forceful voice. She has a forceful voice in the community, in the social media community. Now, please let me help me defeating the censorship, and like, share, and subscribe to our channels. We need, the more people we have subscribed to our channels, the less than they can demote us. Now, today's episode is hugely important because while most of us, we're desperately yearning for people to be talking about directed energy weapons, we have to be very careful about it. And we have to be careful that we do not spread the misinformation that the criminals are putting out there, because they don't want anybody pointing the fingers at them. And you will understand why. There's currently a PsyOp going on with the CIA and the Mockingbird Press, and you should not perpetuate it. Let me explain. Many of us are desperate for Congress, senators, courts, the president, everybody to acknowledge directed energy weapons. But we need it to be done in the correct way. On January 3rd, this is a chronology that you need to pay attention to. On January 3rd, Maduro was arrested, as you all know. And there was a little known journalist that explained how he translated the account by a soldier from Maduro. Okay. And let me show you. It's a little long, but you need to pay attention, because from this guy is that the rest of the news that have been Zero Hedge and the other people have been putting out there came from this guy. Okay. So let me play this for you.
And everybody immediately started bleeding profusely. Protecting Maduro has spoken, and you got to hear what he said. It's in Spanish, but I'll translate. Also, Trump announced that, the cartels, they're going after him in Mexico. The whole vibe of Latin America has changed because of what happened in Venezuela. And now that we're getting firsthand accounts from people that were there, the soldier says they didn't hear him coming. He says the Americans had technology superior to anything they've ever seen. Everything that they were using for radar, for anything, was completely taken offline. They had drones, and the drones were taking out bases and taking out things faster. They didn't have no technology. They've never had to fight against drones. He also talks about that there was only 8 helicopters. There was only 20 men that were sent in. And those 20 men killed hundreds of their men, and none of those soldiers were injured. He talks about it felt like they were firing 300 rounds a minute. Nothing they've ever seen, nothing that they can compete with. And then he also talks to the fact that the Americans had some kind of sonic shock boom that was sent out, and everybody immediately started bleeding profusely out of their nose. They couldn't even gather themselves because whatever was sent at them made them fall to their knees and vomit blood out of their mouth and out of their noses. They were incapacitated immediately. He says he never wants to go through that again, doesn't want to have to fight with the Americans again. He's sending warnings to everybody out there that you think you can fight the Americans. You don't even know what their weaponry is like and what they're capable of. 20 men took out hundreds, and that's starting to spread all through Latin America. And now they're not saying, if you want me, come and get me anymore. They're like, oh shit. Especially after Trump says, hey, Mexico, you're on the list too.
So there you have it. Now, what's happening here is that the first organization that reported on this was Zero Hedge. And they just did a clean cut report of what this guy stated, okay, what he reported. So this came out on January 12th, okay? The independent journalist spoke on the 10th. On the 12th, news reports started repeating what he said. I guess they had to verify its accuracy, right? This is a Zero Hedge. So, and also New York Times reported that they used 150 aircraft, which included helicopters and drones, obviously, and only 20 Delta Force super soldiers. They captured Maduro and the wife. And according to the New York Times, not a single Delta Force operator was killed. However, over 100 of the Venezuelans were killed. And they said that one of the helicopters was hit, but about half a dozen soldiers were injured in the overall. Two officials said that about half a dozen soldiers, I don't know, were injured in the overall operation, because so that would be out of the 20, 6 were injured, but they weren't killed. Okay, so here's the chronology. So now we have on the 10th, this guy says the story, tells the account. On the 12th, Zero Hedge publishes this, and then the disinformation campaign began. Then we have a journalist that no one has ever heard of. I'm constantly on social media. I've never heard of this woman, and she's Sasha Ingberg. She has only like 12,000, 15,000 followers on Twitter. And she says that two people familiar with the U.S. Special Operations tell me that months ago, Special Forces captured, did not purchase, captured a weapon associated to Havana syndrome, and they have been testing it to understand how it works. This is really very lame, because it doesn't match anything that we heard before or that we're gonna hear after. Okay, so that's one of the, I would say, mockingbird press that the CIA is putting out there. Then there is this other media outlet that echoed her. And then this is Vizgard out of Hungary, stating that she said 2 sources, but these Vizgard people who say 4 sources have told her, anonymous sources, that they acquired a weapon. And that it has long been speculated that the Havana syndrome could be caused by some type of new directed energy weapon. Okay, so this is the second this info here. And then so a lot of people from our community are like, yeah, they're talking about. No, you have to be very careful with the people that you repost, because you don't want to do the CIA criminals any favors. They are trying to shift the blame, not from them. Now, on the next day, on January 13th, mainstream mockingbird media, CBS 60 Minutes, posted a clip with Mr. Greg Egring, that is a retired lieutenant from the Army. As many of you know, he was one of the people that testified in the May 8th, 2024 Homeland Security Committee hearings on anomalous health incidents. And he's the one that said, these weapons don't leave an entry and exit wound and make the victim feel as though they're going crazy. Well, this man is pushing it's a Russia hoax, saying that it's, he insists that we are being attacked by Russia. That only what he observed is that the top 5 to 10% of his officers were the ones attacked, and there was consistently a Russian nexus. I think he's a disinfo agent as well. And the reason I know this is because he doesn't bother to look on the way of civilian victims. But it gets worse. Now, CNN yesterday, let me show you. CNN put out a video that it really takes the cake here, because it changes the story. First, you saw this woman said they found it and 2 sources told her about it. Now the other guy said it's 4 sources. And now listen to this guy, what CNN, they're changing the story on the time and what it is. This was
Just that,
1 year.
the Pentagon
This
spent
one,
millions.
let me put it here, was over a year ago, which means prior to the hearing of the Homeland Security Committee.
Yeah, it's
Listen to
interesting.
this.
Sources telling us that the Pentagon spent millions of dollars to purchase this device as part of an undercover operation conducted jointly with the Department of Homeland Security in the waning days of the Biden administration, and that U.S. officials have spent over a year now examining the device, studying it, and still have not definitively concluded whether or not it is linked to those mysterious health incidents. Over a dozen that we know of have been reported, but there is new evidence suggesting that it potentially was. And we're learning from our sources that the makeup of this device really is something that investigators have honed in on. They've found that the device produces what's known as pulsed radio waves. That's something U.S. officials and academics have long speculated to be the source, the cause of these symptoms that have been reported by U.S. spies, diplomats, and troops around the world, and some domestically. We're also learning that while not entirely Russian in origin, the device is comprised of various Russian components, which obviously raises significant concerns and questions about a country that the U.S. considers to be a foreign adversary.
There you have that. This is another version. They paid millions of dollars over a year ago for a portable weapon. Now, wait, let me just have a stop here before I continue with the disinformation. For the person asking me, what does exposing do? We are on a quest to expose this program because it's highly covert. Once it is exposed and it's no longer a secret, it cannot operate because the plausible deniability goes out the window. So that is why it is crucial to expose these criminals. Now, so you have here highly contradictory versions that do not adhere to scientific facts. The first thing that is the pink elephant in the middle of the living room is the following. Why don't they talk about satellites? High-power microwave weapons in satellite that we know are there. Because people in the middle of the ocean, like Craig LaForest in the middle of a cruise, he gets attacked. Why don't they talk about the weaponized cell towers with the Ericsson chip and the 4 panels facing in the same direction that are a directed energy weapon and that has been acknowledged? So what we have here is, with one little gun, some people are going around causing Havana syndrome on people. No, it is disinformation by the criminals that want to point the finger at everybody else. So Dr. Lambert has done a magnificent, and Richard Lighthouse, magnificent effort debunking the misinformation on X and in the Substack newsletters. First of all, when somebody talks, notice they talk about a sonic weapon. Well, sonic weapon used by the U.S. military is called the LRAD, Long Range Acoustic Device, and it is essential, a high-powered loudspeaker used for crowd control. The reported harms are primarily ear pain and hearing damage from extreme decibel exposure. But LRAD does not match the pattern described in Venezuela, which, as Dr. Lambert says, is Havana syndrome all over again, anomalous health incident. It cannot plausibly create the head pressure that the guy talked about, the bleeding and the nose bleeding and vomiting described. And it does not disable radar or communication systems. So you can discard the sonic weapon because we know it doesn't match what the guy that is telling the account of the events, it doesn't match the symptoms. Okay, so forget, whenever you hear somebody talking about sonic weapon, you know they're doing disinformation. Now, let's look at the evidence. Venezuelan President Maduro was captured. And viewer discretion is advised. I'm going to show you the picture that was publicized. And for those of you that have been attacked with these weapons, you know that nosebleeds are a common occurrence. So it is likely that that blood that you see on his shirt came from either vomiting blood or a nosebleed. That is consistent with a high-power microwave weapon, not with a sonic weapon. Okay, I'm going to remove it because it's not nice not very pleasant, but I'm just bringing you the receipts because I want you to be empowered with information so that you don't allow them to tell you lies and then you think they're accurate and you repeat them and you spread them. Okay. So then that blood in his shirt was not caused by sonic weapons. The descriptions are consistent with high-powered microwave weapons. Havana syndrome all over again. Now, so when you hear the psyop of the sonic weapon, now you know why, and you can look it up in Grok or Wikipedia, wherever. Okay, a sonic weapon is dependent upon the vibrational molecules in the atmosphere to deliver a pulse. This is from Dr. Lambert, I'm reading you. However, a microwave weapon fired from a satellite where there is no atmosphere or molecules does not depend on vibration to sustain the pulse. This information is clearly propaganda originating from the counterintelligence divisions of the CIA and DIA. So the microwave attacks that happened, that because this guy, notice he says it disabled them, it incapacitated them. These are consistent with the reports of the embassy staff members in Cuba that suffer from Havana syndrome. Now, as you know, the nosebleeds are a common symptom of many of you, alongside the headache, the nausea, the fatigue, the balance issues. In 2020, the National Academies of Science, Engineering, and Medicine linked the symptoms of the nosebleeds, of the pain and the pressure in the head, the nausea, to potential directed pulse radio frequency energy. So never again should you repeat the propaganda and the lies about the sonic weapon. And then a little later, I'm going to explain why are they like doing this propaganda. You watch this. This is why I'm here. I want you to be very educated on this, because we cannot allow the criminals to spread this propaganda without it being challenged by its real victims that have suffered it and have felt it in their own skin. Okay, so you can also look at Targeted Justice newsletter yesterday that explained how the Golden Dome is going to have a lot of these weapons. It's not, we are saving humanity because this is going to be rolled out to the entire population. And it is our duty to stop it. So now let's go with a little narrative that they paid millions of dollars for these handheld guns that fit. First of all, it was 20 soldiers. They had their guns. They said they were shooting rounds, like God knows how many a minute. They weren't firing microwave weapons. And then the one that they said, that CNN said they purchased a year ago and paid millions for it, $6 million to be exact, $6 million, and fits in a supposedly in a backpack. So we have 6 million targeted individuals worldwide, and 300, at least more than 300,000 in the United States. So you would have had to buy 6 million handheld weapons that cost millions of dollars. At $3 million each, it would be $900 billion. So the annual budget for the entire Russian government is $400 billion. So this would be twice. It would cost twice than their entire budget. It just makes no sense. From wherever you look at it, it just makes no sense, okay? The claim is mathematically and financially impossible to sustain, and you cannot go along with it, okay? Now, Dr. Lambert did something really good. He started bringing out the information from Grok, and he was able to make Grok admit that there is an 80 to 90% likelihood that the CNN Havana syndrome device story, it's a psyop. Well, nobody believes CNN since a long time ago with their hoaxes. But there you have it. Grok, which is objective AI, says there is an 80 to 90% chance that it's all a psyop. Okay? It's not Dr. Lambert saying it. It's Grok. Now, so as I was getting ready for this show, important piece of information came out. And it is that the committee, the Homeland Security Committee, that was the one that held the hearings on May 8th of 2024, that, as you remember, Mr. Eggering was there, Mr. Said was there, and the journalist that I also think it's, the info agent. But now the House of Representatives Committee, the House Committee on Homeland Security, demands information about the device purchased by DHS, potentially linked to Havana syndrome. This is great. You know why? Because they're going to say it doesn't exist. It's a toy gun, or God knows. It's not even plausible that it could have been used. But it's good that they're, believing the story. And I want to hear the story because they have to do a report on that, right? So let's see. More shall be revealed on that. Now, let us not forget the expert, Dr. Robert Duncan, who told it as it was. For decades, nobody can pretend they don't know what these weapons are, because they have had them for decades and they have been using them for decades. There you have it, Dr. Duncan. It's like, don't pretend that you don't know what's causing Havana syndrome. Remember that Dr. Duncan worked for the CIA. So you can ask yourself, well, why the PsyOp? Why are they doing the PsyOp? Okay. For one, when this guy came out and say what he said about that soldier that gave that testimony, I think that the United States was not counting on that little piece of information coming out. They weren't counting on it. And here's what happens. If the United States admits that they have high-powered microwave weapons, the first thing they're going to ask is, where were they? Were they in the air helicopters? Were they in satellites? Who have you tested them on? How many times have you used them before? Because this was a seamless operation, the first of its kind. Where are these weapons located? Who makes them? All these questions are going to come out. If the United States admits, yes, we used our system of directed energy weapons. Aren't these in violation of the Outer Space Treaty of 1967 that prohibits weapons of mass destruction in orbit? That's another question that they're going to ask. Are they being used within the United States? Because you must remember that Dr. James Giordano admitted to the reporter Catherine Herridge that directed energy weapons attacks were happening in the homeland. Ana Toledo didn't say it. It was Dr. James Giordano. And then some journalists, maybe one, will have the curiosity to ask, wait a minute, I heard from Dr. Lambert that he has a civilian registry with 15 diagnosed Havana syndrome patients. That means that who's attacking those people? How come the DHS is not defending them or protecting them? Because it's not, everybody has the same rights. Why is Havana syndrome only being recognized on federal employees and not civilians? Do you see how it goes? Do you see why the CIA needs the little handheld gun PsyOp? That's why. Because all fingers point to the CIA criminals and their MK Ultra that never ended. Now, I just want you to be savvy, okay? So I think that this should be enough for you today on that matter. Now, I'm going to bring you some other good news, and it is that President Donald Trump has finally had it with Patel and told him, he told Kash Patel to fire the treacherous and deep state FBI agents. These FBI agents are total scum in their own way, no better than the insurrectionists in Portland, Minnesota, LA, etc. Kash better get them out now. Radical left lunatics put in by the Autopen and Obama. So Kash Patel has not done his job of cleaning up the FBI from deep state criminals, right? And then immediately, this was in the morning that Trump posted this in Truth Social. In the afternoon, Just the News reported Director Kash Patel revealed that he had fired the corrupt FBI agents involved in the Bureau's anti-Trump Arctic Frost investigation who had weaponized the law enforcement agency. Let me pause here. Remember, this is not just about Arctic Frost. This is also about placing whistleblowers, J6ers, COVID, people opposing COVID mandates, mothers fighting school boards, all of these people, classifying them as domestic terrorists or extremists and putting them on the list. That's why this is so important, because it benefits us. Now, one whistleblower of the FBI said that the FBI supervisor who openly opposed social media and who had the crucial role in the Arctic Frost probe was not fired. Phil Kennedy has been telling it, spreading this all over the place. He fired some of them, supposedly, but didn't fire one of the main people. So what we see is the hypocrisy. Also, Trump has been giving an indicia that he's going to be firing Bondi by the end of this week. There's a lot of pressure for this, to fire Bondi and to fire the other one, the second in command, whatever his name is, the deep state guy, because they're not doing anything. They were supposed to go in there, fight weaponization, Todd Blanche. They're supposed to fight weaponization. They're supposed to be doing what's right. And there hasn't, like my dad would say, we haven't seen much action in the bullpen. My dad was a baseball fan. Okay, so finally, the most underrepresented story of the week, and I think this is really good for us. Okay, I'm not going to ruin it for you. Let me just play it, because I think that the reason why it's the most underreported, it's because when it happens, it's going to be so huge and we're all going to be so happy.
Interesting. Sources telling us that the Pentagon spent millions of dollars to purchase this.
No, I'm sorry, that's not it. Sorry about that. My bad. That's not it. It's this guy. He was right next to it.
The DOJ, the DNI, and the CIA are all looking at a 10-year-long government conspiracy case in which they're likely going to look at RICO charges, look at the Democrat Party and the left as some sort of criminal organization writ large, and people like Brennan, Obama, Comey, and the upper echelons of the Democrat Party are all now in the crosshairs of this grand jury that will be impaneled just today.
And I think that's why Steve Miller and other people have been saying justice is coming in 10 days, justice is coming in 7 days. I don't know. But an indictment is only the beginning of a criminal procedure. It's not, the full thing. But anyways, if this does happen, it might be a massive, huge thing for us, because these are the players that exacerbated this program and put it in steroids, particularly Obama with his brain initiative and experimenting on all our brains. I really want to see that man behind bars for the rest of his life for what he has done to so many innocent people. Yeah, God is in control and the vengeance is his, but there is justice to be administered here, and he needs to be judged for his criminal activity, not just in Arctic Frost, but also being the ghost president under Biden, and also for this RICO Act. Remember, the targeting program is also a RICO Act. Why? Because the government operatives colluded with the private industry, the private enterprise, to harm all of you. So once this is exposed, you have a 7-year statute of limitations to gather all your evidence and file your case. That is why it's so important that, and I insist that you send your Privacy Act request. If you go to targetedjustice.com/legal, the first tab there contains an example, and in the bottom of the page you have the addresses for DHS, not just FBI, DHS, and I just added ODNI, which I sent mine yesterday. ODNI has to be notarized, but ODNI receives the terrorist screening database, so they do have files on you, and you have a right to demand that it be corrected. So please This is a really important thing you need to do to help all of us shut down this criminal program. Now, I just want to show you a little inspiration that I found in the internet, and this is how I feel. And it's funny, but this is exactly how I feel. Let me just show it. This is the tweet goes, "Watch, a big fight erupts in a zoo in Poland." So the little guy there is fighting this huge hippo, and this is how I feel fighting all the government criminals and their apparatus, which is humongous. And the courageous little guy or girl just scared the rhino away. And that's exactly what we're doing. They couldn't defeat us. We are a force to be reckoned with. So I urge you to continue fighting back peacefully. Remember, we do not advocate for violence. Everything has to be peaceful. And if anybody is having some violent chatter around you, stay away. Don't go there. I want to thank everybody that has made it possible for me to be here fighting in this mission for freedom, just making it every morning. I just give thanks to God to be able to be doing what I am doing, working to shut down this horrific program and exposing it. Now, remember, God has protected all of us that are watching and that are here, and even those not watching, has protected us until now. And we must trust that he's going to carry us over the finish line. So we need to continue the fight and trust that God will wipe away all the tears from our eyes. And there shall be no more death, no more sorrow, no more crying, and no more pain. For the former things are going to be passed away. Like I have told you many times, flowers are going to smell more intense. The food is going to taste more. It's going to be more savory. Music you're going to appreciate it more. You're going to appreciate nature more, everything, because you're not going to have taken it for granted. So let's look forward to that. And thank you, dear Craig. Let me just look a little bit at the comments here. Yeah, the criminals poisoned me, and I have been taking stuff, but I think it's something different. I don't think it's COVID. I think that they have, and many of you have it, because I know Mari had it, and other people have been having it. So it's some sort of concoction, but fortunately, it's being prohibited now. And thank you, Matthew. Yes, the request. Well, I wouldn't bother with. It's not a FOIA. It's a Privacy Act request. The Privacy Act says that you have a right to inspect the files that any agency has on you, and it's a Privacy Act because you have the right to demand that any incorrect information about you be corrected in those files. For example, now that we know, because of Chuck Grassley, that there are the prohibited access and restricted access files in the Sentinel system of the FBI, they have to show us those files and not limit. They used to say, just like our custom, we only look in the central record system. We thought that was the entire file. No. So now they have to show us. And then when we request copies of the documents, they cannot charge for it because the statute does not allow it. They cannot invoke the FOIA exemptions because they only can deny you documents to see the records if, one, they are in preparation of litigation, or two, they are in preparation of criminal charges, none of which are going to happen. So requested from the FBI and the DHS and the ODNI. I just sent it the ODNI one, but you need to notarize it and put an attestation statement about your that you are who you are. that you are the person requesting the records. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for your prayers. They are very much welcome, needed, and appreciated. And nonetheless, the darkness. Yeah, the light is shining upon the darkness, and we are going to eradicate it. This can no longer sustain itself. When you have people like Liz Croking that are putting it out there, she no longer can. She doesn't care that anybody will call her crazy because they know she's saying the truth. They killed her dog. They make her look fat in the videos and everything. It's at the receipts are there. You see. So one of the sadness, but one of the things that also inspires me. You know, I have very dear in my heart Adam Garcia, who died without being free as a TI. But now I also have Scott Adams, because Scott, I am absolutely certain, was a targeted individual. And he suffered a lot because of it. And I have no doubt that this cancer has a lot to do with it too. Probably the microwaves triggered and the vaccines triggered the turbo cancer, because there is an interaction. Robert Kennedy, I was going to bring it today, but I had enough to bring you. But Robert Kennedy has exposed the following. Operation Warp Speed was directed by the Pentagon. And it was a military operation that from there that it has all that nanotechnology. And then they recruited the pharma industry to put their names on it. But Robert Kennedy has just 2 days or yesterday exposed this. So the avalanche of truth is coming, and there's no stopping it. These people should be running for cover, because that, you know, honestly, they're not, just like we have nowhere to hide from the satellite, they're not going to have anywhere to hide from justice. Anywhere they go, everybody will know that they're criminals. Hey, right. De nada, Lini. Hey, right. They tried to, yeah, no. And this is the last comment I'm going to make. Yesterday, I did a very long live in Facebook, and I put out there so much information that they didn't let me sleep at night last night. So what I do want to tell you is this, which the Lighthouse has taught me. And they want to make you believe they want to kill you. And while it is true that sometimes they go overboard in their microwaves, the idea is not to kill you, is to keep you in a constant state of anxiety and suffering, because you are an expensive experiment, and they make money off you. All those research institutions, all those gang stalkers, all those FBI criminals, they all make money off you being alive. So they're not going to intentionally kill you. Unless you work for the CIA or you're a perp and you work for them, then they might do away with you if you become a witness. Okay. Anyways, thank you everybody for being here. You have no idea how much I appreciate you being here with me. I prepare this show with utmost love and dedication, because this is a huge responsibility I have to bring to you. You know, I try to be as transparent and to bring to you this information that is crucial in the exposure of this criminal program. So please, when you are going to repost information, make sure it's not disinformation, because you are doing the criminals a favor. And I'm sure that's not anything you want to do. So just be very vigilant, and, you know, repost Dr. Lambert, repost Lighthouse, repost me, repost people that you verify are putting out correct information geared at exposing the people that have maintained us in this criminal program. Okay. Good night, everybody. And love to everybody. Love, Craig. Have a great vacation. Love to you. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Mike, for reminding me to send out the notice for the show today. I'll see you next week. Bye-bye.